Welcome back to the most professional StarCraft 2 with the rank 1 Terran in the world in the red. It's Team Liquid's Clem, facing off against the last surviving Zerg. In the blue, we have SHIN, in a best of 7 Zerg versus Terran showdown to the $5,000 playoffs of Wardy's Team Liquid Map Contest Tournament. And before we get started, be incredible if you could smash that like button, maybe even subscribe. And we counted the algorithm. And Jimmy, what do we have? 1,842 likes on this video, on this cast, and I'll cast another one. And I'll probably do it anyways, because I don't know what else I do with my life. But thank you for watching. Hopefully, you've had a good day so far. And hopefully it's about to get just a little bit better. As the Reaper comes in, the Queen pops out, Drone pops in, Reaper goes out. You can't explain that. Pushed away by the Queen, avoid suffering any losses, but as always, Clem, as infuriating as possible with literally every... The Reaper just a couple knitting needles or even a single one away from death. And that would be a huge win for SHIN, the artist formerly and currently known as Ragnarok. So I've seen him play under this tag for a couple tournaments now. It doesn't seem like an accident. He used to be named Ragnarok. But then he switched to SHIN, which is... Well, wait. The Reaper dies. That wasn't in the script. That's not supposed to happen. Clem might not realize here on a new set of maps, we're on Blackrock, which is ostensibly owned by the Orcs, but the Overlords are kind of creeping them out. And you may have heard that there is no cow level, which was not accounting for this map. There are a whole lot of farm animals scattered throughout, but I'm sure more on that later. First, I was trying to get into the whole history of SHIN's name, which is his name, SHIN. Imagine naming yourself after yourself. Clement. Jadon. Anyways, I don't know if he feels like he's earned the nickname, but I've taken until he determines which player he actually is. When he's doing well, it's Ragnarok. When he's doing poorly, he's playing against Maru usually, and it's SHIN. So we'll see which Zerg player shows up today. Probably both. But which one more so? Remains to be determined. A very quick... Is this a Roach speed rush? 420. He's already blazing his way through the tech tree as the Hellions try to do the same, but there's not much to get through, and this tiny little choke point between the rocks is difficult for anything but the smaller units to squeeze through. The lair will be given away by the fact he sent an Overseer in. There's a Viking out of Clem, which is notable because it's not a Banshee. And the Queens will hold the door. As without a Reaper to potentially bounce him out of the way, or some sort of revolutionary tactic to deal with them by the Frenchman, that he just can't get in. Now, the Queens... Is he going to bait him? He knows Clem can't help it. There's a bunch of roaches behind it. He knows. Like, this was... Oh, come on, Clem. He gets in, incinerates some drones immediately, gets 2. Oh, that could have been a lot worse, but the roaches... I'm not going to call it a masterful bait, maybe a Diamond League one. I'm not convinced that letting the Hellions in and letting them see the roaches was necessarily the best call, but the fact that Clem clearly could not help himself, even though... What? Something. The Viking is walking still faster than a Queen off creep, and it can also fly, which is, you know, doubly insulting. But back at home, Clem... Third command center will lift immediately before building even a single SCV. The siege tank to the front line. Ragnarok knocking on the door, and only a single siege tank and a few Marines to answer. That's enough to keep him at bay, but it's not enough to drive him back. That's why the lack of Banshee is so very clearly relevant here, as without a Banshee in the early game, you're reliant on ground units, and very simply, Roaches and Ravagers excel at demonstrating how quantity has a quality all its own. Ragnarok, is that a hot? 6.5 minutes, even less, starting a hive Only 65 drones, adding 4 more, that'll be about 69, which is a nice start, but the infestation bit, a single infestor on the way, but rushing up to hive tech, while keeping Clem on 2 bases for as long as possible while suffering minimal losses. Literally 0 roaches, which is not very many. No Ravagers either, just the 2 drones and the Overseer. So, I have to say, in game number 1, and there's your cows, and also sheep. I had to say that, that's what I had to say. But also, off to a strong start is Ragnarok. Clem has the double upgrades. He's got 1-1 now completing, armory on the way, so can't really start 2-2 immediately. He does have 3 command centers. He's getting a second factory in order to pump out more siege tanks, which is going to be incredibly helpful. But this hive is obscenely quick, especially in the grand scheme of things. The fact that he went for so many roaches and ravagers, and a scan in the main, and he scans the natural, where he'll see one of the quickest possible ultraless caverns. Ragnarok is ready to roll. But Clem immediately, he knows the best defense is a good offense. He has to move out now because he's not expanding his tech up. He's going outwards. He's got a tech shrubbery right now. Just +2 upgrades. He's got tanks. He's got Marines and Marauders. But goes a fungal, catches the main clump of Marines, but they don't stand still long enough. Clem moving forward, and it is a very dangerous time for Ragnarok. He doesn't have the upgrades. He doesn't have the composition. The Roaches and Ravagers are no match for well-microed siege tanks, Marines, and Marauders. Even with the fungals, this is still an existential threat. There is a collapsible rock tower that I'm not sure either player knows about, which could cut off this area specifically. But we'll see if we end up recreating Black Rock Down. Fungal catches another huge clump of Marines and Marauders, and again, SHIN attempts to snipe off the Marines, but it's a bit of a fool's errand. He does get one of the siege tanks. Forces him to microwave. That's part of the value of the Ravagers, besides sniping the siege tanks, is forcing the Marines and Marauders not to just stand in one spot and unleash a ridiculous amount of DPS. As the #1 DPS of the game, at least usably, is a bunch of dudes with drugs and guns, and yelling about how illegal aliens need to get off their lawn, but it's a matter of perspective. Some paperlisks on the field. Chitin is plating. The armor not quite completed. And the infestors just stand there and hold position, which I guess is better than all of them dying in the fray, but the rocks are halfway dead just incidentally. The Ultraless just exploderated as he doesn't have the armor. He's just gone. The Queen's on the front line as well. And Clem nearly out of energy. But Ragnarok running out of units rather quickly. Does he notice the rock tower, if there was ever a time? Now, it's unclear how many times these players have even played this map, as the entire point of the Team Liquid map contest is to showcase a new set of maps that might be part of the map pool in the future. And obviously, these players have made it far. He knocks down the rocks, but is it he who's caught between a hard place and the rocks themselves, or is it Clem who's going to find a way to rock him down? There's a time to Ragnarok. No! No! We're done. Or we're just getting started. As Clem comes through, cuts through one set of rocks. Big Zergling counter, but the reinforcements will cut it off. A few Roaches on the other side. Got 11 SCVs. So Clem is still locked into this mid-game unit composition. He's got the Marines, the Marauders, the Medivacs, the tanks, the M&M and M&M. And it's enough to keep the pressure on until Hive Tech kicks in. Unfortunately, Ragnarok not skipping leg day. The Viper above, Blinding Cloud in an incredible spot, and even the Bioarmy gonna get caught. The Ravagers, he's tearing through the front. The Ultra's getting caught, bringing more Vipers into the fray, but they don't have the energy quite yet. Kiting back. Ultra's cleaving the siege tanks in twain. The army itself is kiting back on the open field. The Ultras, Clem pops all of them. Now, the Ravagers and Lings themselves will overwhelm the bio, but if you look at the supply, Ragnarok's still in a very strong spot. He's got 81 drones to just 62 SCVs. Clem drops down the command center. Boosts away, but he's on the chase. Does he have concussive shells? Indeed he does. It doesn't work on massive units like Ultralisk or your mother, but Ravagers and Lings are perfectly fine. Target's down another. In the midst of all the Zerglings. Does he have adrenal glands? Of course not. It's SHIN we're talking about. Boosts away again. He's still on the chase. Another couple Ravagers will be sniped off. Unwieldy creatures. And Clem, he's got his mule stimulus checks. He's got his 4th base. He's got 3/3 upgrades. And while it's still just Ultras with a minimal amount of infestors, he has a lot of mobility. We're going to go to the Clem action cam. This is your warning. As Clem. Oh, the Vipers. That was Ragnarok. But the Vipers, we got to drop on the left side. Targeting on the right. Drops out. Just see what he could get done. Meanwhile, continuing production back at home. Picks up again. Viking also exists. 4th base. Re-rallying SCVs. Setting up the gas. Dropping out again, but his medevacs had to come all the way back home otherwise. And, splits off some of the drops. The Marines and Marauders regathering. Just trying to buy as much time as possible before the 3/3 upgrades are done. Immediate pickup. Re-rallying. Reproduction. Not that kind. And the creep will be taken out, at least for now, but he strayed a little bit too far. He dug too deep and too greedily. And another chunk of bile. Ragnarok has reached 201 supply, at least for a moment. That moment has passed, but Clem also knocking on the door at 200. Will he be able to maintain it? This is not that sort of Ghost Liberator style. He's got Liberators in production. He has 3/3 on the way, but he doesn't have so many orbital commands he can just scan the whole map like map hacks with extra APM. He doesn't have Ghosts at all, so Vipers and Infestors are an existential threat. And Ragnarok forgot Baneling speed, but he noticed, and it's going to be completed ideally before he tries to smash into this planetary. There's absolutely no warning until he comes directly into range. The Liberator is yanked in the blinding cloud, but it's easy enough to spot the Banelings. Corrosive Biles, ever so close to knocking out the Liberator. But Clem loses his 4th base. The only saving grace is he lost almost none of his army, which means he still has 126 army supply tearing across the field. Thing is, Ragnarok has done a great job of keeping him busy. He's never been able to bring everything to bear like he was in that first push before Hive Tech came online. So, but the Liberators in position. A Venn diagram of freedom. What's like a big counterattack will be the choice. Whoa! Oh, that is, you do not want to, you can't fight that. That is not, it's not, no. That's a no. 6 siege tanks, 3 Liberators. The double siege. No adrenal glands for the Zerglings, but again, it's typical SHIN right here. Siege tanks, and the fact he was building his 4th command center again on location. Another drop to the north side. But make no mistake, despite, now, on paper, it may look like Clem has the momentum, but it's the economy. Ragnarok still has mining bases, he still has the drones, and he's building the Corruptors. Air control, air superiority is the missing part of this composition. The inability to efficiently deal with medevacs and Liberators is mostly solved by adding a Congress of Corruptors in, though it might not be the most efficient process. Eventually, they usually get the job done. At least you hope. 3 hatcheries simultaneously, and a Baneling mine! And if there was ever a time, there's only 3 orbital commands. He's not just gonna scan. Not as exciting. Well, oh, but he did a half and half. He only detonated 2. I love it. Though, there's not too many more malleable units here that are worth hitting with the Bane Mine. A counterattack. The Corruptors on the way across as Clem hits another base, but he has a lot less to trade. He's running out of real estate. His 3rd base is gutted and about to be knocked down by the Corruptors themselves. The Baneling Mine is still a threat, but there really aren't even enough Marines. He's added some Ghosts into the mix. Has to land his orbital command. The Ghost will line up the shots and discourage any further regression. And Clem is still nearly maxed out. But every single time, the economy is less and less as the income gap climbs towards Ragnarok, who's always gonna push him back into the main mine. But then Clem picks up and gets out. You know, that Bane Mine could actually serve an incredibly important purpose in breaking Clem once and for all. He's just never had the opportunity, never had the space in order to lock down the composition. Does he see the worm sign of the Infestor? I don't believe so. And Ragnarok, 15 more Banelings. He's got 3/3 melee attack and Carapace. He's working on flyer attack as well. It's going to be almost 50 Banelings. There are Zerglings scattered throughout. Look at that vision. He knows the map is dark and full of Terran, so he lights it up as best as he can. There's some scans scattered.
Field depleted. You're engaging the opponent. Time to raise your APM.
I think he's good. Ragnarok at 650 average APM. And it only seems to go up over time. Clem with... It's a Marauder drop. Widow Mines might be the choice, but he doesn't really have any to spare. He's dropping them out because what else? What other choice do you have? Die in the air or die on the ground, and one gets you to Valhalla quicker. It's probably the first one, actually, but... Meanwhile, the Infestor underneath the scan, and Clem has precious few. He's up to 4 orbital commands. There is quite a siege line. But this is clearly desperate. Wait, can you put a tank up there? Maybe. Not that it would matter in this scenario, but... This looks like enough space to put a tank. Alright. He's coming around the corner. And he's just rolling through. Well, this is about the worst possible angle. But again, the Banelings are just rolling in. And does Clem have enough to survive? The blinding clouds. The Ultras don't get the work done. A huge blinding cloud. He may have to turn around for now. But the orbital command, he'll lift it, and he'll just knock it down. 50 supply lead. The Banelings, an existential threat. And so far, Ragnarok has done an incredible job of keeping Clem under wraps, of keeping him at bay, using a mix of burrowed Zerglings for scouting, the Infestors underneath. Pretty much exactly what you need in order to deal with a Terran player who's relatively limited economically, but still has a ridiculously powerful army. He has to trade, but he can never lose a critical mass of units. Because if he does, then Clem might just win the game with a single army. He's done it before. I'm sure we'll see it again. But Ragnarok, his army, he has almost another army in the bank. Clem does not. He's broke, and he's not maxed out. But is he broken? Here we go. Likely the final fight. Assuming Ragnarok's able to break through yet again. The Corruptors knock down the Liberators. He goes straight through the center, retreats to the tank line. There's no more blinding clouds. Look at those splits from Clem. I can't believe it's not butter. He's going to retreat a little bit further. There's a tank on the high ground, and Clem holds. He drives it back. The Zerg are gunned down, and Ragnarok, oh no, he underestimated his power. But does it even matter in the end? 11 more Ultras in production. And Clem will continue his way through. He knocks out a couple bases. The Corruptors are going to try to take it down, but if there was ever an opportunity for a Major League Baseball level throw, that was it. As a great man arguably once said, arguably great, not arguably said, Hydra, when I'm really far ahead and I want to lose, I make Ultras. And it looks like more of an Ultra risk here out of Ragnarok, who just exhausted his entire bank to make another dozen of them. But there's still the Baneling Mine. The other half of the Baneling mining left over from earlier. There are 11 Ultralisks on the field. But there's still 100 Terran army supply. The siege tanks on the high ground. Some real Wings of Liberty nostalgia. I think the Baneling Mine was detonated to no real effect, but the Ultras chewing through the SCVs. The sheer biomass. Oh, around the corner! That's a GG Fungal Riot there! As he just cleaves through all of it. The planetary fortress will not stop him. There's too much. And Clem fought with tooth and nail and, more importantly, high-powered artillery and psionic rifles. But despite losing 8,000 more resources, 23 Ultralists, and of course, never researching adrenal glands, Ragnarok is able to roll Clem in game number 1. Ooh, he was so close to throwing. That was... If Clem had one more base, I know that's a lot of base, but he would have been in real trouble. But what a game, though. That was a clinic on, if you're not Cyril, how to compete with Clem. Just continue to keep the... I gotta point out that Clem did not go for the Banshee. He did not keep the pressure on early. He lost the first Reaper, which Clem, historically, from the very beginning of his career, especially, his biggest issue was being a very emotional player. Like most Terrans pretend not to be, but definitely are. But his highest highs, better than anyone. His lowest lows, though, significantly lower than the average. And I'm not saying any of that happened. Clem was microing like a fiend. But he was fighting from behind almost the entire game. You could put tanks on the high ground, though. The Wings of Liberty nostalgia is so strong. If anyone remembers Lost and then Shattered Temple, we had to shatter the temple to stop people from dropping tanks on the high ground. And Zerg having no real options to deal with it. There are slightly more options now, though. Actually, I'm not sure if there was anything in the army. I think he maybe still had some Ravagers at the end. I think, if possible, it's always good to have a few more Ravagers to snipe off tanks and Liberators and not be reliant on Corruptors. Well, especially if the tanks are sitting on a high ground platform in the middle of the map. It really feels like Clem realized that in the middle of that last game. If he had known that before, would that have made the difference? I don't think so. I don't think it would have been a defining characteristic. And in fact, if he had done it earlier, Ragnarok likely would have had a even stronger response. But still, a great game to start things off. We'll see if Clem adjusts. All the little things went wrong. And that's how well, it's just a whole lot of little things adding up, but that's everything. That's the theory of creation right there. And also the theory of StarCraft, which is included within it. But like and subscribe for Existential Dread. Sometime between now and the heat death of the universe. So, you've got time. Or do you? Jimmy, just... The Queen. Oh, what a bounce! The Brenda bounce and the Queen! Get off my creep! I wasn't even... I got him! Great job, Susan! Why do I feel like you're being a little patronizing, Brenda? Did you say Patreon? Like people can find in the description of this video? Okay, that's... If we wore shoes, I would say you shoehorned it in, but I don't really have a frame of reference for that. Oh, don't worry about it, Susan, just like you didn't worry about that Reaper. I'm trying positive reinforcement. My therapist says it's important. You can afford it in this economy? Yeah. Sorry, I am blacked out for a moment. Ragnarok again kills the Reaper. That is... No, you can't do that. That's gonna be a no from me. Alair's on the way. And again, I'm not 100% convinced. We're on Wavebreaker, by the way, which is like an oil or like some offshore platform where not particularly relevant except for the aesthetic theme here, though there are some curious sets of rocks and overall quite a large map as well. It's a very long rush distance, or so it feels, but there are some speed zones through the center to speed things along, which the Hellions are demonstrating for us. Mutas! That's it. It's a Spire. I mean, I guess it could be a Corruptor Rush, but it's not. It's Mutas. And I like how it does seem to be the trend. I reset that thought process. It happens a lot. But the quick lair has come back. Especially against Clem, but against the top Terrans, where you kind of reclaim the initiative against Terran. Because if you let them just do their normal macro build, and you try to do a normal macro build, they're going to be more efficient. Clem is going to be more efficient. Very simply. Even if you perfectly micro and predict what he's doing, you can't compete with Marines. That's just how it works. That's how the game works. It's not a failing, but it's just how Terran versus Zerg plays out. So, but now if Clem knew for a fact this was Mutas, what would he do differently? Unclear. Maybe nothing. You still really want to move out as soon as possible against Mutas. But how much info does he have? He knows the third base is late, but that's partially because he blocked it. The creep, well, you wouldn't be going this far into the creep. If the Mutas take out these two medevacts, he gets such a tempo advantage. Oh, he's suspicious. Yeah. He didn't really see anything, but the lack of something. Oh, he's getting... Oh, okay. He's getting missile turrets preemptively. Yeah, his star senses were tingling. The stench of Mutas colored the air. Just kind of gross. Oh, the speed zones. But the speed zones work for everyone. And the boost isn't enough to get away. He can slingshot the Mutas. And he knocks down both medevacs. He knocks down... Thank you. Wow, it's a disaster for Clem to start things off. There's no Bane speed. There's no upgrades on the way besides +1 flyer. And there's no turrets at the third. So, despite all the fire and fury here, it's unlikely that Ragnarok is going to be able to follow this up. Oh, whoa! He picked up into the medevac. But that medevac was residing in a zone of danger. At least for a moment. 4 or 5 SCVs going to be picked up. But remember, Ragnarok cut a significant portion of his economy and the timing of his upgrades to get these Mutas out. And they paid off. He lost 3 Mutas, but he killed 2 medevacs. The first 2 medevacs of Marines. With all hands. And he got some SCVs. It's already a win if you're able to put the Terran on defense. That's never a guarantee. But it was unlikely he was ever going to do critical damage with that first wave. So it's about the follow-up. It's about how much control of the map he can maintain while still teching up back at home. Because it's 66 workers apiece. And Clem is going to have one upgrades. He's got his armory in a timely fashion. And 7-8 Mutas are just not enough to be diving on missile turrets, to be sniping off groups of Marines. It's enough to discourage anything but a committed push-out. But past that, a scan. Clem. Clem clearly anticipating what Ragnarok is doing. Gets a couple more Marines. A Muta. It will heal. Thor in production. The much more reliable long-range weapons platform against the Mutas. Now that he's pretty confident that it's going to be mass Muta, some players will make 5 to 10 Mutas and then swerve onto another branch of the tech tree, attempting to catch like either roaches or just like straight to hive for ultras. But this base, not canceled. Ragnarok microing the Mutas on the other side. How much APM is enough? Not 1,000. Need more. Gonna take out the drops, but the reinforcements are coming up to save the day. Knocks down another Muta. And Ragnarok does not have an infestation pit. He does not have the ability to go to hive. Clem. Ooh. The concave of rocks down the center are actually doing a great job of splitting the army and could very well work in Ragnarok's favor. Though he just doesn't have the numbers. A scan? No, don't show him the infestation pit. He moved it when he realized the scan was on the way. That's something, I guess. I don't know. The missile turrets come up just in time, though. Clem he has not seen, the scan on the lair. The infestation pit is not done. The simple fact that is a lair. It's not becoming a hive. It hasn't already became a hive, but instead continues to be a lair is by far the most important info. No burrow for Bane bombs or Bane mines. So, Ragnarok, despite keeping map control, Clem is maxed out. He's going to have 2-2. His army is just better in a heads-up fight. But the mutas are not known for spoiling for that sort of situation. The Lings and Banes, there's still about a minute until Ragnarok's +2 upgrades are completed. A huge counterattack. Clem pre-stims against this. Meanwhile, splitting against the Banelings. The Banelings on the other side, though. Clem looked away. And everything is obliterated. The entire base is cleared out, and Clem retreats. Completely underestimating the scale of Ragnarok's commitment. This was exactly what was needed. He needed to kill the economy and keep the army off his back. And he succeeded at both. He takes out 9 SCVs, the orbital command, and a big chunk of the army as well. The armory potentially under fire. The muta count is high enough to eventually cut through the missile turrets, though the Thor will be juggled around. Also, Contaminate? Yes, Contaminate on both upgrades. He's magic boxing to reduce the splash damage. And will take out both 3/3 upgrades, resetting Clem's advantage entirely. The Thor is boxed in. He gets it to the other side, but the mutas, another Contaminate. 3 Contaminates in a row. It's a full-blown outbreak. The armory and the engineering base are reset. He managed to restart the armory before he lost it, which is very important because otherwise he'd have to finish the engineering base and restart the armory. Clem is maxed out. But again, a very similar scenario to the previous game in many ways, but completely different in other ways. So kind of useless commentary, but hopefully it gives you the dramatic implications that it needs. Because Clem has a very limited economy, and he doesn't have much to look forward to, is I guess one way to put it. He doesn't have ghosts. He doesn't have enough Thors. The upgrades are no longer the priority. The priority is just getting across the map and trying to keep Ragnarok from getting so much that he just runs him over. The mutas and the Widow Mines are still an existential threat. A huge chunk of the army still in the middle of the map. Clem with a whole bunch of bio. The Lings and Banes and mutas, oh my. The Widow Mines taking out a big chunk, trying to cut the wheat from the chaff. The Lings from the Banes. Or, well, really all of them. The Lings and Banes from the game itself. There. Not as eloquent, but behind it an Ultraless Cavern is on the way, but it's still a long way off. And here come the Lings and Banes from the south side. Clem targets down a few to make sure the Widow Mines aren't triggered too early. There's only a few more Banelings behind this. Target fire holds the line, and Clem turns it around yet again. With that pinpoint perfect micro, but at the same time, the Zerglings at the 3 o'clock position. The Banelings are rolling in yet again, and Ragnarok is rolling right through. Another base is taken out. Clem will trade to some extent. Ragnarok is down to 167 supply, and wait a second. Or maybe even a minute. Uh-oh. Again. Clem able to turn it around. A couple more mutas will be knocked out of the sky. He's building 3 more. He's putting it all in the mutas' relatively fragile, yet incredibly agile backs. And he's got 11 mutas, 23 Banes. On the creep here. Upgrades 2-2 apiece. Caught between a rock and a hard place. The Widow Mines try to roll through. Not enough. On top of the Thor. Banelings up to the high ground. The creep doing so much work. The splits from Clem are so good. But are they good enough? No. Clem is cleared from the field, forced into a total retreat. The reinforcements helping out. More of the mutas are going to be taken down. But the supply advantage flips to the Zerg. 3-3 is on the way. Ragnarok, honestly, this snipes. There's a scan to both corners, trying to make sure he didn't miss a base. He can corner where the Zerg are going, where he needs to deal with. And Clem still has 66 SCVs. He's going for a 5th base. 3/3 upgrades closing in. Artie +3 Carapace on the ground, of course. The Mutas have +1 Flyer and Carapace. So not great, not terrible. Ragnarok forced to build more Overlords. Zerglings at the 3 o'clock yet again. Adrenal glands on the way as Ragnarok remembers that upgrades are kind of a big deal. 40% attack speed on the unit you make sometimes literally thousands of in a game. It's pretty good. You can quote me on that. Pretty good. But, oh. Widowmine. That was my reaction to a Widowmine, which seems appropriate. Juggling the Thor, like pirouetting elephants here. But more Zerglings in the 3rd, and Clem cannot. He's continually cornered. Both players fleeing everything around the map. But, well, there's the Ultras. Chitinous plating is completed. These are El Chapo-less right now. They've got speed, and they've got armor. And there's really not that many Marauders. He's been dealing with the Mutas. Widowmine does terrible, terrible damage. The Liberator will protect the base. The sheer amount of bio down the midfield. The Banelings boxing out. The Mutas swing around to take out the Liberator. The Ultras and Banes. 3/3 finishes mid-fight for Clem. The Ultras being caught up, but there's just so many of them. The Banelings are rolling through. And Ragnarok is rolling to maybe 2 games in a row. Wow. What a game. Didn't lose a single Ultra. Only 19 Mutas, which actually seems quite low. Got so much done with them. A hectic experience in 16 minutes. 48,000 resources lost. Almost the entirety of the map taken, despite the sheer size of it. And now, Ragnarok off to a 2-0 lead against Clem. And it doesn't feel like a fluke. It doesn't feel like, oh, Clem was out of position, he got cheesed or something. No. These are straight up macro games. And Ragnarok is straight up beating him. Not easily, not quickly, but decisively by the end. And a similar style in 2 games in a row. Similar objectives, different units, different path to get there. Instead of the Roaches into Ultra Rush, it's Mutas into eventually Hive. And there were so many times where, well, Clem's micro was incredibly good. But the Mutas limit your options for splitting and target fire. You can't do the same sort of near aimbot level micro or perfect splits, because the further you isolate your units, the more easily they're picked off by the Mutas. That's why the Mutaslings and Banes usually worked so well together. Right up until they get too close together and a couple Widowmines or Thor shots land, and, well, it goes back the other way. But Ragnarok 2-0 against Clem, which I would not have put money on that. But I just like to put good games for the fans, so people like and subscribe. Looks like Ragnar's okay after all. Earning that title, that name. I do wonder. I mean, whatever. I know in Brood War, players use like 74 different aliases, hailing back to the, you remember AIM, all right, Grandpa? Get off the phone, Mom. I'm trying to text my girlfriend on the internet. Yes, she's real. She goes to another school. I'm not that old. Also, my mom would not get off the phone. So, back in my day. Anyways, if you related to any of that, how's the back pain? If your first instance was of StarCraft 2 was going up to GameStop, not the stock, the physical store, which I don't even know if that still exists, but and buying yourself a box of the box has gone through a lot, which, you know, yeah. Anyways, enough nostalgia. Enough comments on things that are literally older than the Terran player in this game. I think that Reaper just thought about the last 2 Reapers. No, you don't. And their lack of longevity. And decided, not today. He wanted it too. Clem, easily baited. The thing is, it usually works out for him because his micro is just so good anyways. He might get into those dicey scenarios, but he somehow gets out of it. All right, 3-minute lair. What do we have this time? It's been roaches, it's been mutas. There's a lot of options, but the most important part is keeping Clem in the dark for as long as possible. Come back to us dark. Maybe soon. He hasn't added on any gases. There's the roach one. So, leaning towards roaches again. He's not adding any extra gases, so unlikely to be a Nidus. At least immediately. And if you're going to go Nidus, either it's a supreme late game or as early as possible. Yeah, it looks very much like the Speed Roach. Oh, the Overseer on the Pervert Pillar here. And again, Clem going with the 3-2-1-1. The 3 command center, 2 barracks, 1 factory, 1 starport. Rushing out 16 Stim Marines. Well, ideally as close as possible. The Overseer. Did he spot? Well, he spotted the Marines, which is already a giveaway. You don't need to see the starport if you see more than half a dozen Marines at this stage of the game. You've already got a pretty good idea. Roaches with Carapace and Speed on the way, which are also quite a strong answer. The Reaper trying to get into the main. Will we commit a scan? We've seen Clem scanning a surprising amount when denied this sort of info. Then again, with Terran, for better or worse, you can only adjust your build so much. I guess maybe you could decide between Widow Mines and Siege Tanks. Would be the more obvious sort of decision point. So working my way through that. The Zerglings counterattack at the 3rd. 1 unlucky SCV. Meanwhile, though, the Marines will stim their way down. The Queens, more than happy to throw them back. The Zerglings actually get in, though a few of them caught up on the supply depot. Takes out some of the Hellions. Interesting. And the Roaches are chasing. Gonna pick off a few of the Marines, which not loaded into the medevacs, just trying to outrun the Roaches. This is actually quite a dangerous attack. As without combat shield, without siege tanks, and the medevac's just a bit lackadaisical. He really needs the medevacs to trade with the Roaches. The Zerglings tore down the wall. And the boys are forced to be pulled off the line. Behind this, Ragnarok is building more drones. He's going to have a 10-worker lead and counting. Very notably, the engineering bays are idle. Clem has no upgrades in production, which is the main advantage of Terran usually, especially when competing with this sort of style. Again, Ragnarok has managed to keep Clem at bay. And he has a decisive advantage, both economically and in upgrades, as well as standing army. The medevacs are potentially troublesome, but there's already enough Roaches. No, he's underestimating the Carapace. Clem starts the fight, and Ragnarok very happy to just... Oh, it's a fake! Or a scout, either way. But with +1 Carapace against unupgraded Marines, the Roaches survive a significant, at least they take one less damage from each of those Marine shots. And Marines rely more on firing quickly than they do for a lot of damage. So you really do need those attack upgrades to balance it out. Ragnarok at 7.5 minutes. 164 supply. Looking at that Stefano style, holding down the R key and just battering through. A double drop is sent out for Clem. Which means he has not very much back at home to defend. Factory completes, though. Maybe we'll regret that. Tries to knock it down. The orbital command is now in the danger zone. As well, there's vision from an overseer. He can knock out the siege tank. Incredibly well positioned. Did the double medevac drop come back home? It did. He brought everything here to try to defend. And behind this, +1 missile attack is about to complete. That's a 2 upgrade advantage right now for Ragnarok, but his forces are not entirely focused. 14 SCVs dead. +1/1 is about to complete for the bio, which may give Clem a bit of breathing room. Another drop is sent out. Yeah, he definitely sent it back. Overlord wandering in. Wanders into the unit's lost tab. Scan spots the main brunt of the army. No infestation pit. Ragnarok is committed to the Roach Ravager, which he still has a significant advantage. The +2 Carapace is finishing up mid-fight, which is going to be incredibly helpful. That command center helping choke things off, but he knocks out 2 out of 3 tanks immediately with the sheer number of Ravagers. The third one taken out the old-fashioned way. The 4th base will be gunned down by the drop out of Clem, but his natural is under fire. He's actually knocking out the factory. It's burning. The SCVs are pulled off the line yet again. And the corrosive biles land as Clem looking the other way for a split second. 20 SCVs dead. The rest of the units in the medevacs. The drop is repelled by the Queens. This is restricted lair space. I don't... But the Queens will drive it away. And Ragnarok driving his way through. 1 single tank remains. A Liberator can siege up. The tank taken out by the corrosive bile. Another volley thrown out. And it's enough. He takes out the Liberator. It's just Ravagers back at home. Clips another medevac. An orbital in the sky, but another... There's just too many. The numbers, they don't lie, and they spell disaster for Clem. And I truly almost cannot believe it. 3 games in a row. Clem, he's not dead. Okay, well, that's a lie. He's very dead. He's gonna fight. Think he can. Ragnarok. 3. Clem 0. Clem needs 4 in a row, which, considering how this is going... Huh. The demise of Zerg may have been greatly exaggerated. As Ragnarok hitting Clem with a similar yet very different timing. 3 times in a row. We got the Roach Speed into Quick Hive. We have just the Mutas. And then the Roach Speed again, but this time effectively all in. We head to Old Sun Temple as Team Liquid's Clem. On the ropes. It's time to tag Maru in. Alright. Fun fact, Ragnarok, aka SHIN, has lost 37 series, aka every single one, against Maru in his career. He's beaten Clem, I think, a few times before. Lost many more series, but I don't know if he's ever 4-0'd Clem. But he's lost 36 times to Maru's Terran and 1 to Maru's Protoss. At this point, I wouldn't have been 100% surprised if Clem didn't switch to Protoss against Zerg. Though, historically, he hasn't preferred that. Okay, well, that's enough meta discussion. More for micro discussion. Ragnarok with a pool first on a 4-player map. Not like a 12 pull, not super all in, but a bold move. We'll see if it works out for him. And it is a gasless pull first, but gambling a little that he can catch Clem off guard, as on a 4-player map, you're very unlikely to scout. And statistically, you only have a 1 in 3 chance of scouting the correct direction. But statistically, it works out as he spots the Overlord, which Overlords don't move very fast. So you know which direction it came from, obviously, if you can do a little bit of a little bit of extrapolation there. So the Zerglings, 4 of them will sneak out. The hatchery timing. We go into the main, or we just anticipate the build? The Zerglings will redirect, trying to avoid the Reaper. They will succeed. So Ragnarok is down 3 workers. He's catching up with that number, but this does need to do something to kind of justify its entire investment. If he's able to delay, not cancel, he'll never cancel, but as SCVs could hold this. If he's able to delay the command center, that's the start of a win. And getting the SCV, of course, very helpful. A single Marine, trying to just keep him busy. SCV taken out, hazardous working environment. The Reaper's coming back home. Another SCV, and every second counts here. Every second is another one that Ragnarok is kind of making up for this position. And those seconds run out pretty quickly. The Zerglings. So, this will not be a quick lair. Just, unless he cancels Zergling speed in order to go lair, which would be probably not ideal. The Reaper, there is, you can see the little queer design there, but there's clearly a jump location. The Reaper could pop into the main base. Half dozen more drones on the way. And the Queen, the Zergling, that's enough. Well, the relevant part is less getting into the main. Wow, 340 on the lair. Still about as quick of a lair as you could possibly get. The next 100 gas after the first 100 for Zergling speed. And gas not easy to come by in this economy, so a huge investment. I think more so than any other game thus far, considering the start. Clem. 3, 2, 1, 1. He's sticking with it. Very notably, and I cannot fathom. I'm struggling to understand why. Though this game, it makes a little more sense, but not a single Banshee. 4 games in a row. No Banshee. Not even a Liberator. No early starport pressure whatsoever. Hey. 3 drones dead. The Roach Warren itself will be spotted. They should be taken out. This is part scout, part damage, and I think he can't be too unhappy with that. The Banshee, one of the most effective both defense and scouting units. It forces such a response. Ragnarok has not needed to go for spore crawlers effectively at all, except later on to deal with medevacs. So he's got a Hydraless Den on the way, but that's not defensive. That is a Hydraless timing. He's chosen yet another. What is this? There's a mineral wall with, what, 10? So 2 trips apiece. The reason to have a multi-tier mineral wall besides the size is so that way Terrans can't just drop a mule and get through the more difficult locations. Whereas if you have multiple but low mineral count minerals back to back, then it takes a little longer to mine through, and it takes multiple trips, no matter what. Because the mule can't pick up multiple sets of minerals. The double drop, though, will completely cut the creep back down to the hatch. And he's just tearing right through. Clem, what? The drops, the medevac. Oh, and he doesn't have ray. Oh, no. Oh, and Clem. That's a lot of damage. Somehow, both medevacs survive. He goes to the other side of the mineral wall. 7 drones dead. He also got 5 Hydralisks. And he got out with both medevacs. All these breaks that have seemed to go towards Ragnarok throughout the series thus far. Finally, Clem catches one. And by... that's a little unfair because he could have created his own opportunity there. He hit the timing perfectly, the micro was on point, and Ragnarok was not. He just didn't have the... If he had the Hydras, if he had 3 more Hydras, 5 seconds quicker, that gets completely shut down. But Clem drives it straight through. He knows exactly the edge he has, stabs through the base, and gets out before suffering major losses. So I think for the first time, it's weird to say, but for the first time going into the mid-game, the mid-game when usually we're hitting 3-digit supply, but we're not close to 200, where layer tech and +1 to +2 upgrades, when the economies are good, but we're still working on it. We're working up to it. Whereas the late game begins once we get those later game spellcasters and everybody kind of settles down into their unit compositions, at least usually. Sometimes it's still very aggressive, but just to get a tab on the glossary, I guess. Microbial Shroud. Does he know that costs resources? But Infestor's on the way. Clem has been suspiciously...
Been mined out. Hope you have an expansion.
Suspiciously silent. But now moving out. 1-1 done. Interesting scan. Not sure if he was looking for tech or just whether he had gas there. But Clem, there's some Infestors on the high ground. And they will be spot... Wow. Just, what a whiff. The fungal, a day late and $1 short. Completely off the mark. And not only did he reveal the Infestors, but just got nothing done with that fungal. Clem left a Marine to spot exactly for this counterattack. And the Zerglings will be cut off. Ragnarok. Oh, and he can take down the rocks, which Clem, I think, just noticed were there. The 4th command center is completed. But Clem, again, struggling to decide whether he should stay or whether he should go. Because he knows if he goes, it's going to be trouble. But if he stays, it could be twice as much. So, he's got the watchtower, though, which sees the entire central ring, of which there are speed zones and vision blockers on either side. So you can dive directly into the center, but they likely see it coming. There's also a set of destructible rocks here, which I don't know where they drop to. Interesting. No, oh, it's right here. Wow, there's a lot of... some Indiana Jonesian gameplay here. Lurkers! For the first time. Ragnarok. +2 Carapace. The Infestors. Are there any Vipers? No. 6 Lurkers. Lurker range 6 seconds out. Clem's +2 upgrades just a few seconds behind. And the tanks will move forward. 1 in Lurker range, but just enough bio. And without... like, he's running... There is Microbial Shroud if he remembers. If there was ever a time for Microbial Shroud. And there it is! The Lurker's ducked down! Reducing the damage by 50% just eviscerates the front line. It works both ways. The Fungal's thrown out. He Lurker pushes forward. The Infestors suffer greatly. The Hydras as well. But the Lurkers are able to push forward underneath the Shroud, mitigating the worst of the damage. And Ragnarok will break out the most effective Microbial Shrouds I've seen since the ability was added 7 months ago. In exactly the use case here. The Infestors, unfortunately, were pushed to the front line. And he did lose most of them. He does not have Hydra Lunge. Gonna work his way through the rocks, and Clem is beaten back. But not quite beaten down. How many Lurkers? 8 Lurkers. The income Ragnarok did have a bit of an advantage, but Clem's 4th base is mining, though it is an orbital command. That means the Zerglings are an existential threat. The Zerglings do not have adrenal glands because, well, it's SHIN. The Zerglings on the base, and Clem under heavy pressure. He's going to lose 7 SCVs. The reinforcements will deal with it. But Ragnarok is slicing through. The Liberator not quite in position. 8 SCVs dead. He's pulling back. Ghosts in production. Clem, 2 or 3 ghosts are not enough. You need a comparable number to the lurkers and infestors combined, really, to deal with them. Especially if the Zerg is still on such a high economy. If you're able to limit the bases, say with a double drop in a good position, okay. But Ragnarok is up 20 supply. He's working on 3-3. Though he has no vision of this drop heading out. And he has relatively limited units back at home to defend. Quite a choke point. But the Microbial Shroud could be helpful. He throws it out and will dive right on top. Oh, beautifully done. The snipes will hit some. The bunker helps delay. A single lurker in the 4th base, and Clem again. He'll drive this back for now. The Ghost lining up the shots. The double drop getting the damage done. The Ghost lining up more. But the Fungals will interrupt some of the snipes. The lurkers will do the work themselves. The rest, and an orbital command is dead. And every orbital that dies is one less scan. How many? There's only 3 remaining. The Ghost just kind of walks up. And I thought he was going to get a huge EMP, but instead he just died. So, Clem. So much. I think he almost killed half of his SCVs with his own siege tank. And Clem is just being eviscerated by the lurkers. Even more building on the field. He's going to try to break forward. The lurkers are halfway done. Best case scenario, the Infestors throws out a fungal. EMP hits most of the rest. And wait a second. Ragnarok with half of his lurkers unfinished morphing. And, well, wait a second. What is he? He has 1 lurker left. Which, where, the Infestors are all dead. The lurkers are all dead. Is Ragnarok dead? Okay. He lost every single lurker, every single infestor, barring the one that just got sniped out of the ground. More are building. The infestor comes up, but it's just Hydras to match him. 3-3 is done. And from the... Ragnarok goes from the doorstep. He was tilting over the bridge of victory, ready to plunge into the seas of excitement. But instead, he's yanked back. His legs sniped out from under him, and the Clempire strikes back. Oh. Again, it was almost closer than some of the games that Ragnarok won. So, Clem survives. But it certainly wasn't decisive. It looked like he might just win the game with 2 medevacs, which is something that's happened to Clem many times. But, at least it's not going to be a clean sweep as we go into Rorschach. So look at the minimap. What do you see? A reason to like and subscribe? Me too. A map where you expand northwards instead of towards one another, which has some interesting implications, which honestly are so potentially complicated, I don't feel confident saying anything decisive. It makes things like drops and mutas. Is that a healing shrine? Indeed, there's a healing shrine, but with an air blocker, because only ground units are allowed to get the benefits there. The healing shrine heals all units, not just biological. It's in the very center of the map. So, we'll see if that comes into play. And again, Ragnarok's going to go with the pull first. I think it was successful last game, but it didn't really change the equation. Like, he got what he needed to get, but it didn't really set Clem back in his game plan. That makes sense. So, task failed successfully, I guess. Now, very noteworthy, Clem is not scouting at all. Okay, he's scouting now, but it's late. Well after the Zerglings are already going to be out. So, there's a set of destructible rocks here. I think that takes down half the ramp. He should see the SCV. Will the SCV see the Zerglings? Not if SHIN
Command center upgrade complete.
Manages to avoid it. That was very important. And even though he didn't see the Zerglings, he is going to see the hatchery timing, which is a giveaway in and of itself. Gonna build a bunker? No, doesn't make any sense. He's gonna try to keep him from taking a third, though. Anticipating the Zerglings, because you know there's only one reason the hatchery's late. It's not because he decided to take a swig of soju beforehand. And I'm sure he has enough APM to do both. But instead, he knows it's a pull first. So Clem just sits back with the Reaper. The SCV taking a few knitting needles, it seems, from the Queen, who goes back and gets a creep tumor on the high ground. Interesting. And there's a worker-only path to this mixed gold-blue base. And then, interesting, a lot of bases jammed into a relatively small area. But they do get quite close to one another. Queens, trying to discourage the Reaper further. There's the classic contested gold to the north. 6 gold patches and 2 gas gathers, so very valuable. Clem, 3rd command center, and a 2nd barracks. This is the build. We're doing the build. 3, 2, 1, 1. It might be a little bit meandering in how we get there, depending on how many Hellions and how quick the starport is. But the goal is 2 medevacs full of Marines. And oh, the Reaper gets caught by Slowlings, which is just a little embarrassing. 12 more Zerglings on the way, as Ragnarok seems intent on potential counterattack. And the main weakness of this build is before medevacs, which is quite a while. The reason as Zerg you can't usually go for early aggression is because of the threat of a Banshee existing. You have to have some sort of anti-air. Otherwise, a single Banshee can defend against your fully committed attack. Took a sip of the healing shot on that. But Clem has not gone for a Banshee this entire series. And I think Ragnarok finally taken note of that. There. Well, if he pulls the boys, that's enough Marines. The Overlord? Ooh, okay. I don't... Just a couple Hellions on the other side. He starts a lair at quite a time, but the Zerglings, he's microing the Hellions at this exact time, the worst possible time. And the Zerglings get critical damage. They've already killed the Marines, which undercuts the whole push. The SCVs, citizens arrest called into the fray. And 4, 8, 10, 12, 13. Good thing they have the counter so I can make it so dramatic. Jimmy, edit that out. That was really embarrassing. But 13 SCVs dead. The Zerg rush is entirely successful, and Ragnarok just rips open a massive lead. The lair, the only sticking point is how late the lair is. Both compared to every game in this series and compared to the few units that Clem has coming across the map. He's making the Marines walk for some reason. Just shaming them for the mistakes of their brothers. Which doesn't feel very fair, but life isn't fair. Meanwhile, the Hellions are back. There's no Zerglings nearby. They're working on the Marines, which means the Hellions are getting any amount more drones, which is more than they probably could have expected. But the Marines again! The base under fire, the bait and switch. And he fully knew. There's the cancel at the last second. A few more Marines ripped apart, but he was able to delay the 4th base. And with this sort of roach-ling composition, he needs larva. He doesn't have enough larva production. He's going to start banking money momentarily. As, very simply, 3 hatcheries is not enough. We'll see if that was a confident statement, or I guess if you only focus on roaches, but the 4th base is on the way. And Ragnarok just takes the gold. Make no mistake, still a decisive advantage for Ragnarok. He has the workers 64 to 53. He's got +1 Carapace. Only has a single upgrade, but it's still going to be significantly quicker than the 1/1 upgrades of Clem. It's going to drop it out. The double drop to the north. The Roach is in position. Speed is almost done for him. Zerglings going to try a counterattack. Of course, Clem has the reinforcements. Let's see how long it takes him to react before the Zerglings get in. We'll lose 1 SCV. Clem doing everything he can to try to drag this back. He cannot afford a single critical mistake throughout the rest of this series. Though one might, well, I guess technically another one from this stage, as losing 13 SCVs to barely more than that number of Zerglings and all of your Marines was obviously not an auspicious start. And now Ragnarok with 84 army supply. He's got Roaches with speed. Clem not quite done with 1/1. He'll scout forward with the medevac. The Widow Mine takes it on the chin with the Roach. Gonna drive it back a single siege tank. And now Ragnarok is modding from the goal. Alright. Now the boys are pulled. The Roaches and Ravagers starting to thin out. 1/1 is done, which is a massive shift in this battle. And immediately, Clem turns the tide. Chasing down the Roaches and Ravagers. The Ravagers especially offering quite a target. A few more corrosive bows thrown out. He easily just sachets through them. And, well, Clem takes the supply lead. Where did those Roaches come from? Is he suspicious? The scan, but there's no drones. Does he think... All right, we're going to the Clem camp. Is he thinking about the northern base? Has he ever... I have not seen this map even throughout the map contest. I think almost every player vetoed it. The double... He's trying for the contaminate. He gets a contaminate on the tanks. Going to try to intercept the Overseer. But Clem doesn't seem to be thinking about that northern base. And that could very well be the saving grace here. I love the use of the contaminate. A scan? Does he remember the lair was at the 3rd? Scans for the army. Clem, he's suspicious. He's thinking. He's trying to figure out, because his star senses are clearly tingling. Doing this many scans and constantly scouting around, he's wondering what he's missing. And the gold base is a very important thing to be missing. But is it important enough? Gonna hold his ground. At least until the brunt of... Oh, and he walks into his own corrosive vial. As Ragnarok just trying to move forward. He's fighting on the open field against Bio, which... The upgrades are even. The army supply is dangerously close as well, and that's not great for the Zerg. +2 Carapace about to complete. Clem still a little while off, though. The Overseer won't have anything in time. He scans the natural. He's scanned 3 different bases now, trying to figure out what he's missing. And he still hasn't figured it out. The hidden base. The Bronze League Heroes strategy still works here. But in the end, will it even matter? As he's stimming forward. How many units are under there? Corrosive Bile knocks out a siege tank, but the Marines and Marauders are tearing through most of the front line. The +2 Carapace is doing a lot of work. The Roaches and Ravagers are thinning out so quickly. Clem still has not scouted the base at the 12 o'clock. But is it high noon or midnight for Ragnarok? The medevacs, there's like 10 medevacs. 11 medevacs. And they're almost all out of energy. At least the majority. After all these stims. But if they're out of energy, that means they've done a whole lot of healing. So, Clem has been incredibly efficient for what it's worth in these battles. Almost doubly so in resources. He's just continuing forward. He still hasn't... He sent the Liberators to the top left corner, but they just completely missed the gold base. There's no creep there to give it away. The Zerglings will counterattack. There's no hive. And the double Liberators, a Venn diagram of freedom, will be liberating these drones from their lives. The larva as well. The Queens struggling to get into position. He still has absolutely no indication about the gold. And that is... It's not so much the biggest... Oh, no. Brenda!
Terrible, terrible damage.
Where you gave it all away? I didn't... It's not my fault. I said don't be a gold digger. How dare you? The roach is on the other side. Gonna try to bash his way through, and that's a great position. Knocks out 2 Liberators at the price of 1. The Zerglings on top, and Clem has still been working off a stimulus check of mules. He's still been struggling for upgrades. The 1-2 versus 2-2. Clem does technically have the better upgrades. Ragnarok is, again, trying to batter down the front line. The medevacs are worth their weight in gold and minerals, and they need to be, considering the gold and minerals. The army just evaporates. The Terran army just riding right through it. GG! And Clem, the whole time, he probably went immediately to the replay. Yeah. Okay, fun fact. No, he left the game. He didn't even check. He never knew about the gold, but it didn't even matter, as Ragnarok never found the space to tech up. And Clem takes 2 in a row. Ragnarok tries 2 pull first. It's that feeling of, I just need one more. I just need one more, bro. And he's... In 2 games in a row, he has walked into a victory and then face planted. All he needed was one more step to claim it. But Clem just pulls the football away like Lucy here. And I don't know, Charlie Brown. We're not playing for peanuts. We are playing on a 4-player map, though, with tubes. You've heard of YouTubes, but how about worker tubes? Yes. It looks like we managed to veto all the maps up until this point that had the tubes, which I think is just Fear and Faith and Exarch. But a 4-player map where you can send workers to scout or do other various things via the worker tubes at the corner of each main. Pull first again. Okay. These two have decided what their build is, but I can't help but feel a lot of feeling. Right? He won 3 games in a row, going hatch first into quick layer. And now he's lost 2 games in a row by effectively limiting his... And they've been successful. In my humble and modest opinion. These have been fully successful pull first. That doesn't mean you win the game, especially with gasless. You only have slowlings. But the lower the economy, the more the game hinges on Clem and a few medevacs with Marines, the harder it gets. And Ragnarok artificially limiting his economy for the 3rd game in a row. We'll see. He's been so close. Ragnarok, like many out there, seems to have issues finishing. And nothing to be ashamed of, but you gotta close. And right now, the SCV... Wait, did the SCV scout the base? He's scouted only with the tubes. And he's narrowed it down, I guess. No, he's still narrowing it down, but he's setting it back in the tube. I don't know if he goes slower from one direction. It kind of looks like it's going a certain direction, but I think that's just vibes. The Reaper will find the base. Cross positions. Whoa, Brenda bounce! And the drone! No! Yikes. Ragnar is no longer okay. Another... Oh, come on. That's just gratuitous. Chicanerous and deplorable. What was that, Susan? Churlish and insubordinate. Could you use that in a sentence? I just did. I don't... Sorry. I'm blacked out for... Just pre-firing the grenade. Trying to predict the queens and... Wow, 3.5 minute lair. This time around, despite the pull first, he goes for the quick lair, and he didn't even make the Zerglings. So... And it's Clem... Wait. It's different. Compare this picture to all the other pictures. You have 5 seconds. Or you could pause. But I told you there'd be a quiz. I did not. It's a pop quiz. What is the difference in this picture? No third command center. This is the Beyond build. Clem's metaphorical father Beyond, who clearly inspired so much of Clem's gameplay throughout his career, including today, and still plays the same way. Beyond still playing, still the third or fourth best Terran behind Clem and Maru, depending on the day. Tied with Cure usually. Oh my. Oh no. Ragnarok is going for Mutas. But Clem is going for the quickest possible double drop. Like pre 5 minutes. This will hit the ground. A second medevac will hit the creep before the Spire is done. He picks up, he boosts away, and he's going straight across the map. And Ragnarok is about to be hard supply blocked. It's an absolute, utter disaster. Oh no! This is about to look more one-sided than a Mobius. Okay, he has some Zerglings. If he had no Zerglings, the game ends. Like, right here. Right now. Right here. And right now. But, oh, when he gets supply blocked. Oh, well, how many queens? Just 4 in 14 links. If Clem is a bit less hasty on it. But the Zergling's gonna get done down. The medevac micros back. The queens. The Frenchmen gunning them down one by one. Another revolution for the Terrans. And that's 4 queens dead alongside all the lings. Just as he wanted to build mutas. Another Overlord gonna go down. Not that he needs it, because he just lost so much supply in the third base. It is an utter disaster. A complete collapse. A calamity. A Ragnarok, if you would. Clem, it's not over. But Ragnarok is on 2 bases. He went Spire. He has no mutas. He has 1,000 gas in the bank. But he panicked, and he built Zerglings with all his larvae. He has no larvae and no queens to create more. It's a disaster. This is an epic collapse. Like, if you covered this up and said it was Maru, I would have completely and utterly believed you. But SHIN is back, baby. Being down 24 supply, going Mutaling Baneling against Terran. Oof. That is far from uncomfortable. That is excruciating. This is a disaster. Bane speed isn't even done, so even if there was a hope of the Banelings, he gets the 1 medevac. He gets a freebie. Consolation prize. Bane speed's still 30 seconds out. You're really going to use slow Banes against Clem? He doesn't have a choice. Uh-huh. Alright. No. Honestly, they did about as well as they ever could. Here comes Clem. Alright. Sieges up the tanks. And... oh, wow. That was... literally, they couldn't have gone worse for Clem. That was... Clem... maybe... that was as bad as it ever could have gone. That looked like me playing right there. I'm sure many of you could empathize with that micro against non-speed Banes. Clem feeling like he should have this in the bag, and then the Banelings explode out of it. It's still a disastrous situation for Ragnarok, but he's not dead yet. He does have speed banes, but Clem, honestly, he might. So here's the thing: Clem might not be used to dealing with slow banes. 3-3. Oh no! And just like that, it's a best of one. A complete collapse as Ragnarok, and now for the first time, it hasn't even been a question. That game was Clem from start to finish. What a disaster. And he's been playing like he's gone spawning pool first 3 games in a row. Like, well, maybe this is a good idea. But that has allowed Clem to dictate the pace of the games, despite the early aggression. And he's hard to keep up with. Uh-oh. And this has been kind of the story of Shin's career. He's had, much like Clem, I guess, but much less so nowadays, but Shin has had such high highs. He's beaten Cyril and Clem, just never Maru, but he can beat anyone. Again, barring Maru. Literally. Always that asterisk, but he just can't close. And even if he takes this series, which the momentum has utterly shifted. Oof. But he goes back to the hatchery first. Also, the fact that Clem has been doing the double medevac pretty much every single game has not deigned to go mech or build a Banshee. The thing is, it's less that it's going better for him. It's less that he's doing something different. It's more that Ragnarok's lower economy style is less capable of dealing with it. Even if he delays Clem's expansion, even if he even kills off the early Marines. Low unit count versus low unit count, Terran, the majority of the time, throughout all the fire and fury, has the advantage. The exception might be Mutas, to an extent, but also not really. So, Game 7. Best of 1. Ragnarok with 3 in a row. Clem fights back. And now, the conclusion. Defender's Lab. A Reaper. So much is revolved around the Reaper living or dying early. Clem losing it in the first few games of the series. Getting so much damage like last game. Literally killing drones and living through everything. The third base has not been a given at all. Ragnarok has completely accepted that you don't get a third base early against Clem. And instead has been focused. He wants to build a lair as soon as possible. It's going to be starting in 3, 2, 1. Three. But the Reaper comes back around. And oh no! The drone force. The Queens are trying to outflank. And let him in creep! Okay, Marie. I don't... He did... Well... Don't shush me. Roach one's on the way. Speed roaches are back on the menu. Ragnarok has shuffled through a variety of styles. Clem has not. Or his entire deck consists of 1 card. Marines and Medevacs. Or 2 cards. Either way. I guess he's varied the amount of Hellions early on, occasionally. In this case, the number is 0, because he's cut out the 3rd command center again. And he's just going for the 2-1-1. It's a classic. All right, this strategy has been effective, like, literally since Beyond popularized it. Specifically the 2-1-1, specifically the 2 barracks. Specifically the 2 barracks before 3rd Command Center. Gotta keep adding caveats. Hey, boys. Jacked up and good to go. Because, you know, there's an SCV in there. The Overseer is surviving enough time to actually delay. Yep. As Clem heads across the map. The double drop, but this time Ragnarok should be ready. He's got the roaches in position, the queens, a bit of creep spread. Though this, by definition, with the quick lair, you just don't have as many queens. And your creep spread will suffer because of it. You're gonna trade for some roaches. Both sides trying to micro back, but the medevacs are making the trades pretty good for the Frenchmen. Not like just a hop, skip, and a jump. He drops right back out. A few Ravagers on the other side. What is this about? Just a straight-up roach all-in out of Ragnarok. He's got 44 drones. He's gonna put it all on the line. How many siege tanks? 0. That's not very many. But the Ravagers are out in front. No, not now. Too early. Just one gets picked off. The Widow Mines will be knocked out. Perfect timing. And the Engineering Bay is vulnerable. That's also a potentially huge pickup. Clem just preemptively cancels it, knowing the Engineering Bay is going to be knocked down. And Mr. Zergachev, tear down this wall! The Roaches and Ravagers are breaking through. Clem just has Marines to deal with them. No upgrades on either side. They're going to brawl it out with it all on the line. The Roaches and Ravagers, corrosive about thrown up, will be sidestepped. But any amount of time, well, he's holding. He's not even pulling the boys. And he finally does, but he easily steps through. Loses a bit of HP on the medevacs, but they'll still stay with it. The siege tank, 7 SCVs dead. Ragnarok behind this built another round of drones. It's close. I don't think that was good enough to keep Clem off his back. And Clem is afraid of a follow-up. If Ragnarok just goes for a huge attack yet again, and Clem sends out multiple drops, he just won't have enough at home to defend. It'd be a big, risky move for Ragnarok to go all in again. Especially when Clem has had time to prepare, build siege tanks. But it's possible. And Clem, who just built a 3rd orbital command, doesn't have the energy to scan. He didn't have the SCVs. He needs mules. So Ragnarok carves out some space. Is it enough? The medevac will drop out at the 6 o'clock. Ragnarok is supply blocked for now. He has no anti-air aside from hoping with corrosive bile and dreaming with queens. He killed the engineering bay on the other side. That means his +1 carapace is going to be slightly quicker even than the +1 infantry weapons for Clem. That single medevac going to be a complete thorn in his side. He can't afford... Oh, fires off the shot. Clem easily dodges. No Spire on the way. The Hive has begun. What a series. Ragnarok back in the driver's seat. I think he still has the army to beat. But Clem has a lot of ways around that sort of sledgehammer of a style. But... not if he gets caught by a fungal. And another one to lock him down. One more for the road. No, pick up and get out. But the drop at the moment he got caught, he sent the drop in. He's going to get 8 drones for his trouble. And that means... oh, no, you're not done yet. There's still a Liberator. Ragnarok. Oh, no, there's a drop in the main. The one he didn't deal with. It's all coming apart. Clem, 20 drones. 24. And he's still going. The main base. He can cut through, gets the Overlord, gets more drones. The Spore Crawler not in perfect position, which means it's nothing at all. 37, 40 drones! It is a utter and unmitigated disaster for Ragnarok. He had the economy. He even won a fight. But the medevacs, 2 medevacs with a bunch of Marines, at the end of the day, might end his. Oh no. It is a disaster. This is an army that requires more economy. You need... Roaches and Ravagers, how do I put it mildly? They suck, okay? Against an equal amount of Terran, with medevacs, with siege tanks, in an entrenched position, these units do not scale well. But quantity is supposed to have a quality of its own. Unfortunately, there's no quantity and there's little quality left. His best chance is getting close to 200 supply, just flying around the medevacs. Ultraless Cavern. But with 60, he rebuilds another round. He's ceding the field to Clem, who's happy to take it. Now, Clem only has +1 attack. He's working on 2-1. Again, those infestors almost on exactly the same ramp. That'd be the best case scenario, but he scans, he spots the infestors, the sheer amount of Roach Ravager. But behind this, the fact that Clem already has a 4th base. The fact that Clem is getting those upgrades. Ragnarok will still have an opportunity, but Clem has carved out a decisive advantage from a uncomfortable position. The Zerglings be turned around. Don't need a wall when you have that many units back at home to defend. The Zerglings will be hunted down. Sprinting through. Ultras on the way. The desperate Ultras. Unfortunately, with a low economy, Ultras, he's going to need the fungals. Speaking of, throws one out. That's about as good as it gets. Oh no, the infestors! 1, 2! He gets a fungal, but the drops and the Liberator covering. And here comes Clem with a vengeance. Yet again. The Ultras pop out, but it's a paperless. Getting chased and knocked down. The Liberator's taken out, but Clem targeting the base, just ignoring the Ultra. Pops it as well. The drops, and Clem is just tearing him apart. Even though many of these units are left to be ripped to shreds by the Zerglings. There's more than enough back at home. Ragnarok. 3 games, and he was up 30-40 supply in game 4. And then every single lurker died. And it appears that in that fight, little did we know, so did SHIN. I do not grant you the title of Ragnarok, though you may remain on the Zerg Council. Well, the Ultras are trundling across. He has chitinous plating done. There's still a dream. But if he wasn't able to get it done with 30 supply up, it's a nightmare with 30 supply down. Clem continues his efforts. The Ultras. There's rocks, but who's flanking who? He's caught in the corner. Microing back. There's no infestors, which means the Marauders gonna be able to chunk through. Shoots his own Marine. Traitor in the midst. Oh, but the siege tanks! And it's just too much. He's stimming right through. Some of it rains down, but more of it misses the mark. Another fungal. But there's not enough damage here. A Zergling counter, half a dozen Liberators. He's stimming through. The Ravagers popped like overripe tomatoes. And for 4 games in a row, Clem! The turnaround. 4 games to 3. One of the rarest experiences in StarCraft 2, especially at the highest level, because best of 7s are only for the highest level matches. A 3-0 to 4-3 reverse sweep. I don't know if there's been one the entire year. But the Clempire strikes back. SHIN with a world-class collapse. And he was so close. And unbelievably far. What a series. Thank you for watching. Thank you for spending a significant portion of your day, and I hope I made it at least a little bit better. If you got the means of motivation, be awesome. Check out Patreon, YouTube membership. But I hear liking and subscribing is still free, at least for now. So is checking out Winter Gaming TV. In the second channel, we got more strategy games and streams, but thank you to our Mule Tier patrons, Big G, Devin Door, Kate, Mario Suit, and our new Mule Tier patron, bringing in those extra minerals. Clem might have taken advantage. Crazy Mouse, thank you very much. And, well, to everyone, make sure you check out this video. Jimmy picked it out just for you. And otherwise, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I hope to see you next time. Good luck, have fun. Stay chill.